Hi everyone, Savannah Tree Foundation Field Manager Jake Henry here, and I mentioned in one of my other videos we're going to do multiples on live oak because it's just such an interesting tree. So we're going to do lots of videos on that. Today we have a particularly special one. This is the Candler oak. So I'm not going to read through all of this. This is a sign that's posted at the Candler oak. So feel free to pause the video here if you want to see if you can read through some of this, but I'll basically cover the gist of it, which is this beautiful tree right here. So this tree is about 300 years old and has some pretty fun history. So in the early days of the Savannah Tree Foundation, this parking lot actually encroached all the way up to the base of the tree. You can actually, sometimes there's still little chunks of asphalt over here. And yep, there's a piece right here. So a little chunk of asphalt left over, which is not good for a tree of this size particularly. You know, we talk a lot about trees needing moisture and nutrients. They really need some space to let their roots grow in a healthy way. And so at that time, an arborist evaluated the tree and said it had, you know, maybe 25 years to live. It was in poor condition. And that was in, let me think, I believe that was the early 80s, 1982, I think, and it's doing pretty well. So this Tree Foundation coordinated removing the asphalt from the parking lot and actually helped create a conservation easement on this part of the property. So currently SCAD owns the adjacent building and this property, but there's a conservation easement on it, which essentially means this land cannot be developed while this tree is still alive. You can't use chemicals or machinery or anything that could potentially damage this tree. And another fun fact, it was the first and only conservation easement in the United States for a single tree. Typically a conservation easement is for a large area to preserve sort of habitat. But this tree is really just so incredible, it really kind of has its own habitat all contained within it. So as I mentioned, you know, it's about 300 years old. It's hard to get an exact age of live oaks because they can grow so quickly when they're young and they grow for such a long period. You can get exact ages by drilling into the tree, getting a tree core and counting its rings, but we don't want to cause any unnecessary damage to this beautiful ancient tree. Now we do also help maintain the health of this tree. That includes a lot of different tasks. So each year we hire an arborist to evaluate the health of the tree, perform any necessary work such as corrective pruning, any cabling or bracing. So you may be able to see there are actually a few cables in the tree that sort of help provide a little bit of stability, particularly during storms and hurricanes. You know, we really want to make sure this tree is nice and stable and that it's as healthy as we can possibly make it. Another thing that I mentioned that, you know, pulling back the asphalt is really important, but aerating the soil is also really important for tree roots. Over time, they can just sort of, that soil can get compacted and really smash down, really poor oxygen environment. And so occasionally what we'll do is hire a company to come out and do what's called air spading. So essentially they have a long pole attached to a compressor and they blow air into the soil around the tree. So it helps aerate it and, you know, let those roots grow a little bit more easily. And what they also did is kind of remove a little bit around the base of the tree. I've talked about this in other videos. You know, planting a tree too deep can be really, really bad for it. And even over time, you can just get sort of soil accumulation, things washing up against the tree. And you really don't want that. You want to be able to see this root flare where it starts to come out from the tree and spread out. And so that was also part of that air spading, was to remove some of this soil around the base of the tree. And we do other, you know, simple maintenance stuff too. Sometimes we'll have volunteer groups come out and help us weed out here around the Candler oak. Remember, as I mentioned, we can't use chemicals, can't use any heavy machinery, so we have to come out and weed all this by hand. So we really appreciate our volunteers when they come out and help us with that. And this is a fenced-in area, so this is normally locked. So if you want an up-close personal view of this magnificent tree, keep an eye out for our next Candler Oak weeding event, because it is it's a pretty fun opportunity to work under this beautiful canopy. And you know, as I mentioned, these are pretty much their own ecosystems. You can see some plants actually growing up there in the center of the tree. You get some soil and organic matter accumulating, and that's enough for some trees to germinate. So we have other types of plants growing on top of this magnificent tree. Not to mention the Spanish moss and the resurrection fern, all these other epiphytes that can grow on the tree. Really just an incredible specimen, especially when you think about the fact that if this tree is about 300 years old, this was growing before James Oglethorpe even got to Savannah. So this has seen the entire history of the city all contained within these branches. So pretty wonderful thing to think about, and I hope you all enjoy, and hopefully you'll get a chance to check this out. It's right across the street from Forsyth Park, so it's pretty easy to find. It's a hidden gem right here in Savannah. All right, thank you all for watching, and take care.